Okay, so I would like to give a quick warning before we get this video started. This list is not what I think are the best DS games of all time. No, these are my personal favorite DS games of all time, and put mad emphasis on favorite. I favor one more than all of them, and you will find out eventually. Please note, this is my personal list of my personal favorite DS games, and if you want a list of the best DS games, then you're at the wrong place, honestly, because I really don't know what is considered the best DS game because I didn't have many choices at the time. Dude, come on, I was like 8, relax. I've realized a lot while writing this video. I love the DS, yet I've played so little games on it. I mean, it's not that I had a job at the age of 8, so I didn't really have that many options, but 10 is all I needed for this video, and I barely got that from my initial list. It's like claiming you have an expanded knowledge on basketball, but you don't know who Michael Jordan is. The DS was my very first console I ever owned, so it means a lot to me as a gamer of 15 years. Honestly, I really can't stress enough that I'm a gamer. The revolutionary handheld made by Daddy Video Games was a phenomenal way of continuing the legendary line of on-the-go mobility gaming. To think that this is the only series of consoles that have 2 screens in one, and no, the Wii U does not count. You would think that Sony or Microsoft would give it a shot eventually, and half of them did, but it wasn't with 2 screens. Who knows what Microsoft would have come up with, but it probably would have been garbage. Sony did it twice, and honestly, 50% is better than Microsoft. Actually, 80% is better than Microsoft, so you can speedrun it and beat them easily. The Vita and the Portable had their moment, but people were too busy playing Elite Beat agents on the ride to grandma's house. With my very limited options of games to pick, made this a lot harder to rank, but here I am. I somehow managed. Nintendo was known for their successful experimenting with new consoles, and they took that extra step in just adding another screen and revolutionizing the handheld scene once again after the Game Boy lines. I can promise you, if there were 2 of me, that's when overpopulation starts getting bad. But this is the handheld that can play Nacho Libre. Do you really think this thing has any dignity? You ever try to take an idea from someone and turn it into something of your own? Kind of like Mark Zuckerberg, but it doesn't come back to bite you in the ass in the future? Well, Nintendo has done this a lot in today's world with the ungodly amount of Wii U ports to the Switch, but the main example of this I'm using is a bit more watered down than the original, but it does add more to it to classify itself as its own thing. Enter Mario 64 2, but not really. The great success of the ever so popular one of 2 N64 launch titles is known in gaming history as one of the most revolutionary games of all time. And then there's Super Mario 64. The former plumber once looked like this. God knows what those polygons were on in the 3D making of this model, but luckily 8 years later, the DS had a similar launch game of this certified classic. Super Mario 64 DS added a lot of new things to the original formula that its N64 counterpart provided, but also took out a few more things, like worse, not so fluid movement, but they added the very nice additions of mini-games, extra characters, adding 30 extra stars to collect, new bosses, new power-ups, a better camera, brand new areas to explore, new music, and a bit of a different narrative this time around, but the goal is to still save Peach. You can play as Yoshi, Luigi, and Wario, who have their own abilities, their own ups and downs. Honestly, just play as Luigi. There was a lot that was added to make this game more memorable. Like I said, it added new stuff to classify itself as its own game while also being a port of an old game. The fact that they were able to stuff that entire game on a DS cartridge and add more to it is impressive on its own. Is it better than the original? Honestly, it's up for debate, but it doesn't have to be the sequel that's usually better than the original, unless it's Space Jam 2. We wanted it, and they delivered. Oh Lord, did they deliver. They say 2 is better than 1, but honestly, not all the time. So Nintendo decided to double that, and now babies have to get involved. I'm not so sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's more of a good thing because no one dies, which is good, but time travel exists, but this isn't Back to the Future 2. So what do we do from here? This game has the answers to all my questions, but not really because I haven't achieved time travel yet. There's a lot to unpack, so let's talk about it. The second installment of the Mario and Luigi franchise, a little bit of time travel, and this may not have been the debut we've been waiting for these two, but it would bring everything better if Yoshi's Island didn't exist. A lot more character building between the older and younger plumbers, as their involvement when it comes to gameplay is a lot more important than not being playable at all, instead of Yoshi being a bad role model and trying to get Mario to evade taxes at a young age. A very story heavy game as Mario and Luigi get to know their once baby selves, and let's hope they didn't ruin their future by saying they're one day gonna save Peach by going through a bunch of hotels. Bowser's baby counterpart from the same Yoshi's Island game comes into the fray to work with his older self, because 2 actually might be better than 4. Unless you keep mistaking him for Bowser Jr., then you can't do math. Gameplay wise, this was a perfect RPG concept for the DS. During combat, each bro is mapped to one of the 4 face buttons. Lots of broken special attacks, great music, and Queen Shroob gives you all the reasons that you're gonna get evicted eventually. The Big Nose Squad travels around the Mushroom Kingdom to stop the Shroobs, and now that I think about it, Shroob sounds like a really bad insult you really shouldn't say to a foreigner. The year was once 2017. I had played this beautifully pixelated game for the first time in years and played it for a total of a month, then I dropped it. Well, it's a great Mario Kart game as it temporarily introduces Rob and Shy Guy into the franchise, as Rob never came back for a future Mario Kart, even though he should one day. Probably because this cart was just a pair of legs with a wheel in between it. Yeah, that's kinda weird. Also, if you use Dry Bones in the Dry Bomber or any character in the Dry Bomber, you're either a Chad or a bitch. A lot of classic tracks and great new compressed DS music. Is it the best Mario Kart game? In my opinion, no. To other people, this game is their god, so I'll leave them be to praise whoever they want, because Mario Kart DS became a religion in 2005 and eventually turned into a cult in 2006. The Sonic franchise. So infamous, yet so well known for the best and worst reasons. I've never been more cautious about a game until Frontiers. But we're going back to a good time in the world. It's the start of a new decade in 2010. Everyone didn't like Sonic Chronicles Dark Brotherhood. It's been 5 years since the dumpster fire that is Sonic X ended, and everyone is playing the Wii. But I was playing the Sonic Classic Collection, because at the time I didn't have a Wii because I was broke. A great collection because it has actually good Sonic games. 4 of them to be more specific: Sonic 1, 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic and Knuckles. Now that I say that out loud, that is very confusing. Surprisingly, no Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but it's fine. You can play as Knuckles in Sonic 2 and Sonic and Knuckles, so you can die while gliding in Chemical Plant as the Guardian of the Master Emerald if you feel like it. Being able to play 4 games on one handheld cartridge, I mean Mario did the same thing, which gives Sonic the obligation to jump off the stage and die. But that game is on the CD and is featured in a collection that shares a menu space with Sonic Drift 2. I bet you right now you didn't know there was another Sonic Drift game. I didn't know either until I was scripting this. You learn something new every day, and sometimes it means the failure of a gaming franchise you love. Party games, party games, party games. That's what the Wii is for. But luckily on the DS, Mario Party was able to run on blue and red spaces with really good pixelated music, a story mode, clever dual screen action, even more clever minigames that make the dual screen concept make sense, and a whopping 8 characters. Jesus Christ. Remember the weird ass names in the team battles in the older Mario Party games on the GameCube? Well, they returned in this game, and we got some fun ones like the Green Machines, Flower Players, and the Bad Boys. But we also got some very concerning ones like the Fungus Friends. Now we know what Mario and Toad do in their spare time. This is the only good party game on the DS because they weren't able to port Pac-Man Party to it. Instead, we got Shrek's Carnival Craze party game. What the hell has this world come to? This is starting to seem very familiar, but I can't put my finger on it, so I guess we'll just play the Phineas and Ferb games on the DS. You would think licensed games like this wouldn't be the best thing in the world unless it starts with an S and ends with SpongeBob, but if you have the combination of being super successful on TV and having lots of bias surrounding it, you got SpongeBob and the Super Mario World cartoon. Oh yeah, you also got this. The thing I love about these games, other than the fact that it's a video game based on my favorite TV show of all time, is that it sticks to the source material and doesn't try something different that already wasn't different in the show. Phineas and Ferb find something different to do every day and they go on wild adventures, and who knows what the hell might happen. Maybe Meat might make an appearance in this game, god damn it. Not only that, but they don't have to face any consequences. Yep, this is the American dream right here in the years of 2007 through 2015. 2016 is when the apocalypse is gonna start. The fact that this got 2 games on a handheld but Final Fantasy VII didn't make it to the N64, well, let's be real, that's Nintendo's fault. But luckily they were able to redeem themselves by allowing Disney Interactive Studios to publish 2 games for a handheld. It's a lot of fun to play, lots of fan service, and now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna petition for a crossover game with Phineas and Ferb, Marvel, and Star Wars on the DSi, new 2DS XL, Wii Mini, the first Xbox 360, PS3 Slim, PS4, Wii U, Linux, and the Virtual Boy. You can thank me later. We're back to another great year for Sonic. 2005, because Sonic 06 didn't exist yet. Imagine if Blaze the Cat made her debut in that game. I would rethink my life decisions of liking her as a character. Luckily for me, I owned a DS and I played Sonic Rush.
Back to back, and spinning on it back to back, on the turntables back to back, and spinning on it back to back, on it back to back, and spinning on it back to back, on the turntables back to back, and spinning on it back.
Probably the most innovative handheld Sonic game since the Advance series. Also, Dimps was a part of the stage design, and things are starting to make a lot of sense at where classic Sonic's future was looking like. Let's just say it wasn't good, but at least in this case it's not a bad thing. A lot of fast-paced gameplay, awesome bosses with both Sonic and Blaze, being able to play as Blaze in general, the compressed music and audio honestly doesn't sound that bad as you would think it would. Okay, it's not Mario Kart Super Circuit bad, but it's not Cooking Mama good. It's just right. You have to collect both Chaos and Soul Emeralds to unlock Super Sonic and Burning Blaze. It's the same concept as collecting the Chaos Emeralds and the Super Emeralds in Sonic 3 and Knuckles to unlock Hyper Sonic, instead just 2 different final forms for 2 different characters. I personally see it as an underrated game because people mainly talk about the Advance series and for some reason talk more about Sonic 4, even though it is mainly a negative reaction, but still, not as underrated as the sequel, Sonic Rush Adventure. It's not a part of this segment, but I feel like I had to mention this somehow if I'm gonna talk about Sonic Rush. Also, I never played Rush Adventure, so you can disregard me whenever you're ready. You know, some people say that third time's the charm, but I have a counterpoint. Can it really be the charm if the first 2 were actually really successful? Well, not if the third game absolutely demolishes the first 2. And here we have Bowser's Inside Story. You would never think about being able to play as Mario, Luigi, and Bowser at the same time that isn't Mario Party, Mario Kart, Smash Bros, or any Mario sports game. Bowser is still our antagonist, but not our main threat. We got an interesting concept here. Toad Town goes through a pandemic as a virus starts to spread around the Mushroom Kingdom. You know, for 2009, this is a very bold prediction. The people immediately think Bowser has the brainpower to cause a kingdom-wide pandemic, but guess who has no idea what's going on? Luigi, what the hell? Wake up. Bowser goes out to try and find what's causing all the trouble he wanted to cause because he's petty like that. And he finds our main antagonist hiding out as he's plotting. Reintroducing Fawful, the mad psycho genius that needs to be playable and everything. This game set him up to be one of the greatest antagonists in Mario history and one of, if not the most genius characters in all of gaming media. Superstar Saga set him up real well for his debut, Partners in Time set him up for his revenge in a funny fashion, and Bowser's Inside Story set him up as a massive threat to society. He created Dark Bowser and let out the Blorb virus as a distraction to finish his creation. This is one of the greatest Mario games of all time. In my opinion, this was the peak of Mario and Luigi, mainly from a narrative perspective. Everything else is great, but that story and the character development of Fawful just reels you in like your fish addicts to random hooks with stuff on it that appear out of nowhere in the water. You just can't look away and it's always interesting. Fawful's minion, please DM me on Twitter and maybe we can do a stupid collab maybe, I don't know, man. Yet another swing back to even more good days. The first game I remember playing consistently every day non-stop during my childhood. Pac Pix. I played the multiplayer mode and the minigames with my cousins. I grinded the Luigi poker game, as that's when I started my new Super Mario Bros. Gambling addiction for about 5 to 7 years. I definitely needed help at the age of 12. A resurgence to the 2D style Mario games with its own identity like Mario 3 or Mario World, with other 3D Mario game releases such as Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, Mario's Time Machine, and Mario's Gone Missing. Honestly, he needed this. The beginning of an existential crisis that lasted way too long, but the beginning was the phase of realization that you're getting old. So the legal drinking age is a really good start. The return of traveling through 8 worlds with a multitude of power-ups, enemies, different biomes, and a lot of Bowser Jr. Instead of the Koopalings, we got brand new unique bosses for every world, which is a very welcome addition, even though you still have to fight Bowser Jr. at every tower level, but at least this is one of the main reasons for this game's success. Also because it brings back 2D Mario. Also, I would like to mention that this game is one of the highest selling games of all time at a massive 30.72 million copies sold all over the world. The game does bring back the minigame feature from Super Mario 64 DS while taking away some and adding new ones in their place. The wanted minigame is broken but still super fun. When you look at the list of highest selling video games of all time, you can say that this simple yet very intriguing game is on par with a lot more complex masterpieces like Modern Warfare, the second generation of Pokemon, Breath of the Wild, and it beats its Wii sequel by a few 100,000. A massive impact on handheld gaming that took all my free time away from me as a child and to neglect all my schoolwork, even though I did that anyway without it. There's something about the Rhythm Heaven games that make them so special to me. Fun visuals, wacky characters, and the best part of every rhythm game, the creative ways of keeping the rhythm alongside the amazing music. Being able to just relax and listen to the music and stress out over not getting a perfect in Philbots 2 is what these games are made for. These songs are addicting to play and to listen to. I had a 1.5 year long phase that my musical taste was nothing but Rhythm Heaven songs. Obviously that includes the other games games that are part of the franchise. But something about these songs hit different for me, as they work so well with the DS aesthetic and the unique way of using the touchscreen in different ways to keep up the rhythm. Every single Rhythm Heaven game is great, and every one of them has the argument for being the best game in its franchise. Honestly, it's up to personal preference. Some of my favorite songs include Bluebirds, all of the fourth line of songs except for Remix 4, that one's trash in my opinion, Frog Hop, Space Soccer, Karate Man, all of these sequels, Remix 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, so many bangers, and probably the best rhythm franchise of all time. I will gladly respect your wrong opinion if you don't believe so. With the DS as of now being the second highest selling console of all time, it really did have the variety and diversity of making it the most successful experimental creation Nintendo has ever released, being able to innovate and step even further outside of their zone. First it was the NES, then the N64 controller, the entire GameCube concept, and now we're bringing in 2 screens for the price of $150, which also includes a touch screen, a built-in mic so it was automatically better than the GameCube, Chat, Game Boy Advance backwards compatibility, wireless local multiplayer, a massive library of games, first party, third party, and licensed games, and on-the-go mobility. Take this baby anywhere, and as long as you have at least one game, you're good to play, man. If you don't have a charger, then good luck. I think I'd rather not have a charger, because not having a charger is better than taking it into the bath and dunking it in water thinking it's waterproof and having to lie to your cousins that it's dead just so you don't become an outcast amongst the family. But don't worry, I got another one that following Christmas.